Hey everyone, welcome back to Living on the Verge. I hope you're having a good day, or at least a manageable one. Today's episode, it isn't heavy and it's definitely not a deep dive. It's more of a check-in, a few observations from real life that have been sticking with me lately. I've been thinking a lot about expectations, the ones we absorb without realizing it, and how much quiet pressure they add to our lives. So let's talk about that. I want to start off with talking about those that we inherit, like about age and productivity, relationships, money, timing. Like by the time you're X, you should be married and you should have 2.5 kids and a white picket fence. Or if you are Y years old, you should be retired. Or you shouldn't dress like that anymore. That's not for your age range. Or your family expects you to come home for the holidays and can't accept that you have a new wife and a new family that also would love to spend time with you during the holidays. So it's all of these expectations, the ones that quietly shape our decisions without us ever sitting down and asking, do I actually believe this? Is this what I want? Because a lot of pressure in life isn't coming from what's happening. It's coming from what we think should be happening. And when reality doesn't match that implied expectation, we feel irritated, right? We feel disappointed or unsettled, even if nothing's actually wrong. And that was a big realization for me. I noticed recently at a cooking demo and dinner that I went to, it was genuinely fun. I had a great time. The food was great. The energy was good, but it was also a little chaotic. The mic situation was a little weird, so it was kind of hard to hear at times and understand the directions. There was wine flowing and probably 80 people in the room. So as the evening went on, the background chatter got a little noisier and it was a little bit hard to really decipher kind of what was going on. And then there was one person who just kept shushing everybody like we were in a library. And what struck me wasn't the noise. It was how everyone seemed to have a different idea of what the night was supposed to be. So I'm sure that the chef and instructor's expectations were that everybody would be able to hear him clearly and all of the equipment would be smooth and there would be really good engagement, and therefore everybody would come away with a very clear understanding of how to cook this meal. I'm sure that the cute couple that was out for date night had an expectation that they would be able to catch up and chat and kibitz while, picking up a few pointers on how to make a meal. And the lady that thought we were in the library, I'm sure that her intention was that everybody would sit quietly with bated breath waiting for chef's next directive and or instruction. So you're talking about a room full of people with a bunch of different expectations at the same event, and nobody knows what everyone else's expectation is, right? Some people were there to learn every single little technique. Some people were there to socialize. Some people were there for the experience. Some were there for the food. And none of those expectations were wrong, but they weren't shared. And yet everyone in that room kind of reacted as if they were. That's when it really hit me. An expectation without the benefit of a conversation is really just a setup for disappointment. And I kind of saw another iteration of that thing play out again earlier in the week at book club. We've been reading this book. It's dense. It's a good book, but there's a lot of information, and it's in the best way, very detailed. And so I mentioned that after nearly 3 hours, we had only gotten through 2 chapters. And instead of frustration, what emerged was this realization that I think every single person there had a different internal expectation of what progress looked like. So I kind of set out to find out what was going on, and I checked with one of my friends, and one of my friends said, well, I'm just kind of trying to figure out when we're going to get through the book. And then I talked to another of my friends, and my other friend said, well, I don't think this is a book club book. I think that it's way too detailed and that there's so much more to be gained from just pacing ourselves. And then I spoke with my other friend, and my other friend said, I guess it just depends on what we're trying to achieve from this book club. Are we trying to nurture friendships and relationships and grow, or are we trying to get through X number of books in X number of time? And then it struck me. And so after having these conversations, I realized that instead of being frustrated, what I came away with was a realization that every single person, including myself, had a different internal expectation of what progress looked like. Some thought we'd be halfway through by now. Some thought the discussion was the point. Some hadn't even considered that there would be an endpoint, and none of us had talked about it. It was so weird. It was so human how each of us walking around with our own version of what the club was, quietly assuming everyone else was on the same page. That's not a productivity problem. It's an expectation problem. We expect things to be smoother, people to behave differently, progress to look a certain way, right? We expect for joy to wait until everything is finished. And that was another thing that struck me at the cooking class. I was legitimately having a wonderful time in the moment. I was experiencing true organic joy. And you guys, it wasn't perfect. And that's when I kind of just realized it. Like, wow, we don't have to wait until every I is dotted and every T is crossed in order to experience joy. We can expect that things will be imperfect, and that could be perfectly okay in that moment. And so when those expectations go unmet, we don't question the expectation, right? We question ourselves or the experience or the people involved. Lately, I've noticed myself choosing not to focus on that, not to grip onto those moments so tightly. I'm learning to let things be imperfect. Let people be who they are. Let an experience still be good, even if it's a little bit messy. And that shift alone has changed how much I enjoy things. I was thinking about it as I was driving home, and I thought, wow, this is really good stuff. I'm going to say it again. You don't have to wait for joy until everything is finished. Because here's where I am right now. I'm not trying to do less. I'm trying to do things with less internal pressure. I podcast because it's fun. I enjoy gathering with people. I enjoy creating and hosting and planning. But we do so much sometimes that we forget to enjoy the process, and exhaustion overshadows pleasure. When enjoyment is always postponed, when it's framed as something that comes after everything is handled. How many times have you had that birthday party and then everybody leaves and everyone is raving about how wonderful it was and you can't remember a dang thing that happened? Exhaustion becomes your dominant feeling, right? Not joy. And then we wonder why joy feels so fleeting. So, if there's anything that I'm practicing right now, it's this: letting go of outcomes, letting people be who they are, letting the lady shush us if she feels the need to, letting moments be imperfect. It's okay that I didn't catch all of the directions on how to make the surf and turf pot pie. I have a card. I can read it later. I'm here to enjoy the experience. and letting joy exist before I earn it. And that was the big one for me. I don't have to earn joy. I could simply experience joy. It's life-changing for me at least, and this isn't to be preachy or anything. I'm just practicing allowing enjoyment to exist alongside the effort, and not as a reward, but as part of the process. And so a couple of things have to happen in order for that to actually work, right? Well, first of all, you need to loosen your expectations. But you also have to know what your expectations are. So you have to loosen those that say, once everything is handled, then you can relax. Once the house looks perfect, then you can sit down and enjoy a movie. That day rarely comes, people. Rarely. And noticing that has already changed how I'm moving through my days. So I'll leave you with this, not as advice, but just something to notice. If you're feeling frustrated or disappointed or quietly tense, it might not be because anything is going wrong. It might actually be because an expectation you didn't know you were carrying isn't being met. And sometimes just seeing that, just naming it and noticing it is enough to loosen the grip. As usual, I truly do not have this all figured out. I'm just paying closer attention to what actually brings ease into my days and what actually drains it and quietly is taking away my power and my energy. And right now, that looks to me like less pressure and more presence. And letting joy exist alongside effort, not after it. So remember to allow yourself to experience a little joy in your day, and remember to be real with your expectations of others and to communicate your expectations of them so that there's clarity and those joyful moments could be more abundant in your life. And before I go, just a quick pop culture pellet cleanser, because of course, I'm a few episodes into the current season of the Traitors. Are you watching? Oh my gosh. I'm through episode 4 and I'm loving this season. If there's ever been a show that perfectly illustrates unspoken expectations and bad assumptions, it's this one. First things first, there will be no spoilers and I'm not recapping, but I do want to point out my favorites so far. So I am really loving Lisa Rinna. Of course, I knew I was going to. I love her to pieces anyway, and I've just missed her. So I'm glad that we have an opportunity to watch her on this season of Traitors. I am also really enjoying, is it Jam Jam? YAMYAMLOL. Anyway, I really am adoring him as a person, and okay, probably a hot take, but I like Ron. I really do like Ron. I like his spirit. I like his matter of factness, and I'm just really loving this season. But it's so funny because getting back to expectations, it's like everyone is convinced that they know who to trust. Everyone thinks they're reading the room correctly. And meanwhile, the truth is usually hiding in plain sight, which is part of the charm of this show, of course. But it's such a reminder that certainty doesn't always equal clarity, and that assumptions, when they're not checked, can completely distort the reality. If you're watching, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're not, consider this your nudge. It's a really, really good season. Okay, now I'm really done. So have an amazing weekend, and I'll be here until next time, living on the verge. Bye.